on wet, and that means you're going to add some water to your paper first. So I'm going to get my bigger flat brush and just add water onto my paper. And you don't want to add too much, and you want to spread it out across the page, because if you add too much, it'll make the paper warp and bend. And it'll just be a little bit harder to work with. So like adding water onto the areas I want to get paint onto. So I think I'm gonna leave like a white border on the edge on this one. And I'll go in with some red and some yellow that I mixed. And you can just go ahead and add that like straight onto the page. And you can even get a smaller brush for details and go back into some more red to get a stronger color. And then put that directly on the paper and watch it just like kind of do its thing. And again, for this, you don't want to use too much water. You kind of have to find that balance that'll allow the paint to move, but like won't soak the paper through. And I can even go ahead and like mix colors in the palette or on the paper. So let me try and go in with some yellow, and I'll like just add it into the red here. But we're going to be writing on this, so I'm going to keep the colors pretty light. And what other colors can we use? Let's see, some green maybe? And I'm just spreading it along the page. And watercolor does dry lighter than it looks. Like it loses its color as it dries, so you just want to think about that as you're painting. And I'm kind of like blending it through the page. And maybe I'll like add some dabs of darker green. And add some water and let it kind of flow. And it's getting a little warped, so I want to be careful with adding more water. And as the paper starts to dry, like in this corner, you'll see like when you add more paint to this drier side of the paper, it'll leave actual brush strokes. You can do that. You can add some texture with your brushes. Maybe you mix some blue into the green to make it a little darker. Add whatever you want. Okay, so I already made a green wash over this, and I'm adding this darker green color on top and leaving some brush strokes visible maybe. And you can still do the wet on wet technique and like add in like different colors. So let's say I want to do orange. You could do like spots of orange. Maybe the paper's not really wet enough for that. paper was not meant for watercolor, so I apologize. Could do some cool little patterns. Or maybe even go in with your smaller brush and add some lighter colors. Mix those in your palette. And you can do like a border here again. And maybe I'll just wait for that to dry. Okay, we could try this on another page and just add something called a wash. So I'm going to go back and get some blue and add it to a lot of water. And I'm going to want to mix a lot of paint because this page is pretty big. Or big enough that it'll need more water with the paint. And I'm going to leave a border on this one again, and this flat color is just called a wash. And you can spread it all the way through the page. And like it makes these cool little brush strokes because the paper's still dry. And maybe I still want to leave some of those marks, so you can leave those. And it gives it some texture. And here we have a blue wash so far. And on top of this, you can start adding in some different colors. So maybe I'll go in with some purple. And maybe I'll lighten it up by mixing it with the red that's already here. You can do different patterns. You can do like strips of purple on top of the blue. And like the brush is kind of wiped away some of the paint along with that, so it makes like a whiter line. But yeah, you can just experiment and see what like the different techniques do. You can go in with like a lighter color. But I'm still keeping this pretty light just because you're going to be writing on it. And maybe I'll make a border with yellow. And you can also do dry brush techniques on top of this, so we'll leave this out to dry. Okay, I'm gonna go back to this one and add some more pops of color. And maybe I'll go with pink. I don't know if... Okay, that red wasn't really clean, it was more of like an orange. Okay. So you can just add a lot of water to this red to get this lighter red, like pinkish color, and then maybe add that as like a wash over this. But be careful with mixing red and green because it will turn brown. And maybe I don't like how that turned out, so I can go in with a paper towel and just dab it away. Paper towel is like your eraser, and just took all the color off for me. And I'll fix that part up again. And I'm gonna kind of stick to the colors on the sides just because I think you'll be writing more on the middle part. And you can do like dry brush technique, kind of make like some cool lines. And yeah. Okay, Okay, going back to this previous one, maybe I want to like add a design to this border over here. I can go back and get some more, some dark green. And I want this to be like a darker color, so I'm not going to add too much water. Add some blues to this green to make it like super dark. And to get like a sharper line, I can use like the corner of this. And just kind of like... It kind of looks like a snake. And you're going to want to wait until your paper's dry to do this, or else like these lines will kind of like blend in with everything else. So I'm just making some flowy lines. And maybe you can add like, I don't know, to make it look less like a snake, I might add some leaves. Or you can just turn that into a snake. And maybe I'll change the color up a little bit, add some light green. And do the same on the other side. And you can also do pops of color, like maybe I'll go in with some red. Without adding too much water. To create some contrast on these greens. And that's just a quick, easy, fast way to add some like little designs to the corners or the borders of your page. Okay, now I'm going to do a third one and make it a wash again, just so it covers up the whole paper with a light color. And just getting all of this yellow down onto the paper. And yeah, you can do this with any color you want. I'm just sticking to lighter colors so that you can write on it and still see everything. And the cool thing about watercolor is even when like it doesn't turn out how you expect, it usually just turns out to be nice no matter what. Like, watercolor is so nice to work with. It just kind of blends together. And if you want to do wet on wet, you can like keep adding other colors on top. So maybe I'll do like spots of orange onto the paper and see like how the water runs. Maybe I'll add some more water on top of here. But again, be careful with it warping. And maybe tilt the page and see like how the water runs down it. And just creates this cool like water like running down the page kind of look. And it's gonna dry lighter than it looks, so don't worry about going like too dark. It'll probably be okay. Okay, I'm gonna try that again. Yeah, this is not watercolor paper, so it might not want to work very well for me. Yeah, we can just wait for that to dry before adding more color. Or you can go in with like, maybe you want to do like a light green into that too, and it'll like blend together into the color. I'm adding some water just to make the paint actually run a little bit. Kind of like the green and orange color palette. So. Okay, I'll just let that dry.